We started working with them in January, and then after 2 months, we were able to triple their user acquisition. Their daily average signups went from 30 to 98 every single day.
This is Tanya. She built and sold a bootstrapped SaaS for 6 figures, then founded rankingonai.com, an agency that does SEO and AI visibility for SaaS like cal.com or Suno. I invited her today to show you the 6-step playbook to get your SaaS cited by ChatGPT.
As soon as your ChatGPT or your Claude is actually recommending you a tool, you're very likely to go and trust that because you have that existing relationship, and an AI recommendation kind of feels like a recommendation from a friend. So something that we've seen across all of the companies that we work with, all of the SaaS, is that...
But also the shortcuts to get customers from LLM in 72 hours, and why you should avoid optimizing for vanity metrics.
For AI visibility, your DR doesn't matter. You can go and post whatever, and still you might get picked up by ChatGPT.
So Tanya, tell me, why should I even care about SEO or AI SEO?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially for bootstrap founders. The main thing with SEO is that it's compounding. You can basically go and start your SEO strategy right now, and you'll be able to get results that compound that also don't cost you that much. You don't get that same kind of result with something like paid media, where as soon as you stop paying, you actually don't get any of the benefit anymore. With SEO, your SEO and AI visibility will run for a much longer time, and more importantly, will get you the best profit margins. So if you care about your profit margins, SEO is 100% a strategy, a tactic to go and learn more about. Secondly, I would say, just as you are now using AI for everything from your Claude code to your codex to every single pipeline that you're probably building, AI is now implemented in it. As soon as your ChatGPT or your Claude is actually recommending you a tool, you're very likely to go and trust that because you have that existing relationship, and an AI recommendation kind of feels like a recommendation from a friend. So something that we've seen across all of the companies that we work with, all of the SaaS, is that your AI visibility and your clicks coming from AI have a super, super high conversion rate. And a lot of studies back this up too. Ahrefs, one of the most trusted sources in AI, have done many, many studies on this. And I believe they cite that on their own website, whenever AI recommends Ahrefs, that converts 17 times as high as a regular click from Google. And so based on those two things, it feels like SEO and AI visibility is really a no-brainer.
And can you tell me the difference between SEO and AI SEO, and maybe like the difference to get number one on SEO and AI SEO?
Yeah. This is such a big topic, especially this week, because literally, I think you're smiling because probably, like Google just released its official guide on how to do AI visibility within Google and Gemini. And they basically state that SEO and AI visibility are the same thing. Here's the thing that's different though. With AI visibility, you are really, really looking at the LLM recommending a certain thing. So the way that that works is it will basically go and check a ton of sources that usually are very related, actually at like, I think it's a 63% overlap within ChatGPT citations, as well as Google's first page recommendations, Google results first page. And you're going to see that there's just a huge amount of overlap. So typically, if you're doing really good SEO, you're also doing really good AI visibility. Here's what's different though. A lot of AI visibility doesn't work for information. So what is information? Information, for example, is if I run an AI proofreader website asking what is an AI proofreader. If you ask something like that to an LLM or to Google, you're going to get very different things. On Google in the past, you would then get the like a first link, and then on that link you would see this is what is an AI proofreader, and then maybe that website is an AI proofreader, and then you would learn more about it that way. With an LLM right now, people tend to ask ChatGPT, and you're just going to get that answer. You're not going to get a link to go to any other website. So basically, people don't care anymore about informational queries. They just immediately get them all answered by an LLM, and that's the end of the story. the big thing in terms of SEO and AI visibility and where you find that overlap is in bottom of funnel content. This sounds complicated, like a lot of SEO sounds complicated, but actually is really easy. Bottom of funnel content just means that you go and search for something that is a comparison or a listicle. It's basically when you already know that you want to buy as a user, what are you going to search for? And typically you're going to search for best of. So let's say that I'm looking for the best SEO tool. Instead of searching for an informational query, what is an SEO tool? I'm going to search for a bottom of funnel query, and that's going to be SEO tool, best SEO tools, Ahrefs versus SEMrush, SEO tool buying guide. And that's the biggest, like one of the biggest recommendations I can go and give you is go and create bottom of funnel content that will actually get you cited in LLMs as well as in SEO. And that's kind of how you get like two birds, one stone.
And is it better to post this content on your own website or on other websites?
That's a great question. So the best thing is a mix. I think that having your own, like we work with a lot of people, or I see a lot of companies that have done no SEO at all. And so they don't have something simple like a CMS. Super simple, go and embed a CMS. You can do that on a vibe coded website even. I like Ghost on more complicated or more mature websites. I would highly recommend something like Payload, which has a really, really great setup for MCPs as well. On your own website, if you have that CMS set up, you can basically go and post everything. That also doesn't need to be public. It doesn't need to be your newsroom. It doesn't need to be customer facing. Remember, this is an SEO optimized, AI visibility optimized place for all of your content, all of your bottom of funnel content to go. So having your own narrative is super, super helpful because basically any LLM is going to go and look at your website first. So if somebody asks something about, let's say your company name is like Teapot. If somebody asks, what is Teapot AI doing? Do you want to talk about that from your own website, or do you want somebody else to talk about that? It's really important for you to control that narrative and make sure that the LLM can flag that this is a great source of information and that is a trusted source. So definitely have your own CMS in place. Then a second part of this question, should you go and do it on different websites? Traditionally, we call this like backlink exchanges or even like affiliate. Right now, the thing that is like really, really popular, and we'll call it that, is digital PR. Go and make sure that you are also appearing on listicles in other websites. Now, how do you do that, right? It sounds really complicated. How can I actually get onto another website? Why would they add me in? This is way less complicated than you think. So typically what you can do first is go and ask ChatGPT about what are the best tools in my industry, or what are tools like this and this tool, and then you use a competitor. Scroll down, go to sources, click on sources. In sources, you're going to see that it's basically taking all of the recommendations from like 10 to 20 different listicles. Typically, these are already competitors, bottom of funnel content. You're suddenly going to realize, oh my God, my competitors are writing so much content about why I am not the best this or that in my industry. You're going to realize like, okay, that's kind of crazy. What you can do here is go and export that. You can literally just like copy paste it, take a screenshot if you want, and ask Claude or something to put it in a Google Sheet, adding in the URL as well. Really simple. What you'll want to do then is literally go and send a little email. Just send an email saying, hey, I saw your listicle. Would you like to include in my tool? What you're going to get is either people who do SEO. You're going to then be talking to the webmaster who's going to be like, great, I would love to have a backlink exchange with you. Or people who just like don't respond. Or even people who like ask you for money, because it's very common to actually pay for these backlinks. Also something that's very surprising in the beginning, but it is a very, very well-established thing that you pay for backlinks or that you do some type of exchange. Now, what if you want free backlinks or you just like don't have budget for it? If you have budget for it, of course, everything is a little bit easier, as the Bootstrap founder will know. But initially, you don't have budget for it, and that's totally normal. So you're going to have a lower response rate. Count on like 3% of people getting back to you, between like 3 and 7%, depending on how good your outreach email is. And what you're going to be able to negotiate with to go from, let's say, $1,000 backlink, and that's a bit high. Like, it usually won't be $1,000. I would say something that's common is like $150. Go from like that price to zero. The way that you negotiate that is by having really good listicles yourself. Because if your listicle, if your piece of content is ranking on the first page of Google or is cited by ChatGPT, and this competitor is actually interested in being on that listicle, that's great. You can go and say, hey, I'll put you as number 2 if you put me as number 2 as well, because you've got to put someone there, right? So why not make it someone who's actually also in the same industry and who will put you on that listicle as well? And that's something that's super common. It's not weird at all. And definitely go and ask for that kind of backlink exchange. That's really helpful. Another thing that works really, really well, and this is when it's not actually someone who is a competitor. This is a separate category. This is going to be someone who's working on an affiliate basis, or even someone like bloggers. And a lot of bloggers have done extremely well for themselves just by writing really great affiliate content. Go and give them free access, give them your premium tier for free, whether that's for a year or longer, but make it more likely and give them the tools to actually write positively about you. That's really, really helpful. I think also people forget that like bloggers, affiliate writers, and stuff like that, these are basically business owners as well. And some of them do extremely well. I know affiliate bloggers who do like $1 million revenue a year, which is crazy because they're like 5 people or something. But remember that they're also business owners, and that you probably have a lot of touch points that are really helpful for them. So sometimes that's doing something like, let me do a tweet about your blog. Let me do a LinkedIn post about your blog. Let me also backlink to your blog for something else. And so all of these little things, they can be really, really helpful to negotiate that backlink exchange and get it down to free, because you might not have a budget, or do something where it's a win-win situation for both of you that would get both of you better SEO as well as AI visibility. So remember, it's not a zero-sum game in backlink exchanges and digital PR.
Yeah, and I've been on the other side, so I was an affiliate myself. There is something that I liked personally, is that if I have a listicle and someone wants to get higher on my list, then I will just want a bigger commission. So if the top of my list have 30% commission and the other SaaS brings 40% commission, then it will be on the top of my list straight away. So even for free placement, I will just like give the person more commission on my SaaS.
I think that makes so much sense. And like, this is a commission. You don't actually prepay them, which is great. And actually one more thing, and I wonder how you would have reacted to that as like being on the other side of it. If they are affiliate, I would always add in the conversion rate, because the conversion rate basically decides if they are going to earn from you or not, right? So I used to run an AI photography SaaS, and it was a one-time payment. And with one-time payment, our conversion rates were insanely high. You know, it was like a one-time $30 fee, and our conversion rate would be like 17% when people were searching for bottom of funnel content, even if the affiliate ranked first. And so if they said, this is actually the best one, here are my results, and then they link to it, we'd be able to pay them out so well, because our conversion rate was really high, and they deserved every single dollar of that.
You know SEO works, you just don't have the time for it. But every day you spend postponing boring marketing is another win for your competitor who already ranked number 1 on Google. Take this example. If you have a social media scheduling tool, then people will look for that on Google. They will search exactly this keyword, And as you can see, there is 3,400 people who are looking for this exact keyword every single month on Google, which means that there is 3,400 chances for you to convert these visitors into customers. And this works for any kind of product. People are searching on Google trying to find the best product in this market. And if you want to convert these people into customers, you have no choice but to show up in this zone. The only thing you have to do is to kickstart your SEO now, so it will compound over time. But I understand, you're probably way too busy trying to improve your product. That's why we built Distribb. You just have to create an account, add your website, and we take care of everything. We write and publish daily content for you, build backlinks from real businesses, so your brand shows up on Google and AI search. If you want to give it a try, you can click on the link in the description to get your 3 days free trial. Now back to the episode. Which LLM should I optimize for? Because there is Perplexity, there is Gemini, there is ChatGPT, Grok. And do I do the same work for all of them, or should I focus on one of them? What should I do?
In general, it depends on your target audience, but I will say Google AI Overview is not negotiable. And I say that because Google AI Overview, or even just like SEO, is still going to get you the most clicks in general. It's got much better tracking. It does much more blue links to the actual website. And that tracking is really important because with something like ChatGPT or Claude or other LLMs, they don't always add a link. So you might be recommended a million times a day, but it doesn't show up anywhere. It doesn't show up in your analytics. It doesn't show up in any of your clarity. It doesn't show up anywhere. And so how can you know that you are being recommended? Because a lot of AI trackers even, they work by proxy. Whereas in reality, your GPT, your Claude is always personalized. You know, it's very, very difficult to know how many times you're actually being recommended because first of all, you need to be showing up as a recommendation. Then secondly, there needs to be a link. And then thirdly, people need to click on that link. And so the case that happens, we call it AI click-through rate, it's like 1%. You know, so in your Google Analytics, you're going to see in your user acquisition reports, you go by source medium, you can see chatgpt.com as a source. You can see Claude as well as a source. You can see everything as a source. You can go and look at that report right now, and it should be pretty accurate. But you probably want to times that times 100 for an actual understanding of how often you are really showing up. Because on average, the AI click-through rate is 1%. For which one you should optimize for, besides AI overviews and like general Google, I think, well, studies show that ChatGPT has the highest volume, right? ChatGPT is accounting for more than like 60 or I think it's 70% actually, is accounting for more than 70% of all the traffic driven by LLMs. That's super, super high. So for volume, for general direction, if you're not sure where your audience is, you're going to want to go to ChatGPT. Now, let's say that you are a B2C product, right? You're actually targeting customers. You're not even like B2B. That's definitely ChatGPT because a lot of people use ChatGPT free, right? I think we forget about that because as business owners, we're probably all paying for both ChatGPT, Claude, and potentially other LLMs. But a lot of people use ChatGPT without paying for it. And when people are using it without paying for it, they tend to be the more average user, and they tend to be using ChatGPT a lot more often than something like Claude. That may be slowly changing, but that's not changed right now. And so ChatGPT drives the bulk of general traffic. That being said, if you are someone who is targeting developers, technical people, last studies show that majority of those and more technical people in general, or things like product managers, they tend to be using Claude a lot more these days. And so it really depends on the kind of audience that you are that you're determining to target. With something like Grok actually has a shockingly little amount of AI traffic that they drive from like the latest numbers that I've seen. But the same kind of logic counts. If you are targeting people who tend to be on Twitter, I think Grok is an excellent way to go for it. But then the question of like, are they very different in terms of how they show up and how you can go and show up in Claude versus ChatGPT versus Grok and other LLMs? They are very, very similar. So typically the challenge isn't, oh, how can I start with, how can I like decide which one to target? Typically the decision is start targeting, start creating content that is actually actionable, that will get picked up, and implement your basics there, and you'll go so far because there's likely so much content that needs to be implemented before you go and niche down into the specific LLM that you're wanting to target.
That's the perfect transition. I am a bootstrap SaaS founder. I have no clue what to do. What should I start by, and what should be my step-by-step process to actually get cited in any LLM?
I love that. Let's say that you have nothing and you have no money, right? That's like, I think almost every like bootstrap founder in like the first week. It's day one. The first thing you want to do is go and set up a CMS. How to set up your CMS? The cheapest one, as far as I know, is Ghost. Use Ghost. Ghost is super easy to use. Ghost will be able to have your website hosted on like blog.yourdomain.com. Perfect. It starts free, and then I think it's like $15 or something per month. Start there. Secondly, you want to figure out what people are actually searching for. There's a really easy way to do that. Go in and copy paste your landing page. Just copy all, paste it in Claude, and say, what are some bottom of funnel or BOFU keywords that people may be looking for? Listicles, comparison content. Put it into Claude, paste in your landing page, see what it says. It's probably going to give you like 100 different keywords or more. Ask it for the 5 or 10 best that could be relevant for them. Done. Thirdly, you want to go and turn those into AI visibility prompts. So now go and ask Claude, turn these also into AI visibility prompts, and also create me a content brief for every single one. This, by the way, is not like the most elite kind of like SEO, but it's going to get you your first steps, and it's going to make you really, really comfortable with how to execute a workflow like that. So do all of those things. Don't even think about things like keyword volume and stuff like that. Your first step is really to create bottom of funnel content that works really well on a blog that you've set up. Fourth step, you go and create that content, whether you human write it or you use some AI workflows. That's kind of up to you. Typically, the best thing is like a balance of two. And so go do that, publish it, make sure that that content is indexed. The way that you do that is by going to Google Search Console. You can just search for Google Search Console, connect it to your website, and start making sure that your blog is entirely indexed. Then you maybe want to do a little bit of like very basic SEO optimization. You can just search that. That's going to be like meta title, meta description, having good images, adding schema markup, adding FAQ, and adding FAQ schema markup, and then also making sure that your blog has something set up that is your author name, as well as an author bio, and even an image. The reason that that works is because Google and a lot of LLMs even prioritize very heavily that you have trust built in. They call that EEAT. You can look that up if you want. You don't have to, but basically make sure that your blog is trustworthy. Also in your blog, and these are kind of like the next level, but the more that you can add in things like authority arguments, big clients that you've worked with, big numbers, why should someone use your tool and not another one? And feel free to brag here, by the way. You want to be authoritative. Go and put that in, and it's going to get picked up much more. ChatGPT in particular really cares about authority arguments. So if you have any name recognizable brands that you've worked with, and that, you probably also have something like logos on your landing page, go and put that in your GPT, go and put that in your content as well. Don't add them only as images because they don't get picked up as well. You don't need to go and create markdown files for everything that actually completely doesn't matter. An LLM's text also doesn't matter, has been like completely debunked many, many times. It's not that it hurts, it's just that it's a waste of your time. So do all of those things, start publishing. I'd also say start learning about SEO and AI visibility. One of my favorite ways to do that is through the Ahrefs blog or follow a couple of newsletters that are really, really helpful and actionable for that. And then lastly, after all of that is done, you want to have tracking set up. Here's a free way to set up tracking. Go to analytics.google.com, connect everything to your domain, to your website. You're now going to have your source medium set up properly. You can also connect your Claude to that. So you can go in and ask Claude Code something like, how many blogs, you can go in and ask Claude something like, can you double check the tracking on my website? Is everything working properly? You specifically want to be able to track how many signups are coming in through which blog article and how many conversions are coming in through which blog article. And now that's really, really different things, because it can always be that one blog article is driving a huge amount of clicks and impressions. By the way, my favorite tool for checking clicks and impressions is SEO Gets. It's SEOgets.com, bootstrap company. They're super, super cool. And they basically make SEO less painful and less ugly, because everyone who knows that has looked at a Google Search Console dashboard, it's not a vibe. So SEO Gets, I think, is a really nice tool to use. They're also free. SEO Gets may show that you have like 50,000 clicks on a certain blog article, but it may not convert. And so if it's not converting, there's no point. You want paying users, not just free users. So you want to go and double check that in your Google Analytics, making sure that your tags, your Google Tag Manager is properly set up for paying users, as well as for signups. And then you can go and see which specific article is actually working really well and then double down on that niche. That is the best way to start doing your SEO and AI visibility. And it's going to be really, really powerful for getting you indexed by ChatGPT, by Claude, really by everything.
Is there a specific architecture of my website that works? Like, for example, if I look at Ahrefs or SEMrush blog, they have static pages for versus, they have static pages for alternatives, and then they have the blog for long tail keyword.
Yeah.
Is there like a specific thing that actually work with your customer?
Are you talking about programmatic SEO?
Just like the architecture of the website, even without like programmatic, just which page should be static and which page should be actually a blog.
Yeah. I think, I guess there's like the programmatic part of it and then the general architecture. The main thing about the architecture is that you really don't want to have things that are not pre-rendered, right? So it's already shown that all LLMs have really big trouble with websites that are like completely vibe coded because of how much they have dynamic content and they don't show up as well and they don't crawl as well. So yes, you definitely want to make sure that your website can be properly crawlable. And you can go and check that in your Google Search Console as well. And I think there are even very simple, I mean, just to keep it really easy, going to searching for like AI crawlability, there's a really great Chrome tool that will basically, it's a Chrome extension that you can basically turn on your website. I think it's called AI Eyes, and it shows you what the AI sees. If that shows up blank, you're not that crawlable, and it will be a big issue. It's also part of why I always vouch for using a CMS that is not a custom CMS, unless you have 1,000 engineers just lying around doing absolutely nothing. But I would always suggest to use a proper CMS, use a WordPress, use a Ghost, use a Payload, because basically with a proper CMS, that's already all optimized. And you don't need to be thinking so much about how do you do the perfect structure. For your main website and for your hard-coded website, yes, you definitely do want to make sure that it is crawlable. I recommend checking with something like AI Eyes or another extension. And it doesn't need to be super, super complicated. I will say the bar there is really, really low. And if anything, in my experience, some of the biggest mistakes that engineers tend to make for all of their brilliance, when they think about SEO, they only think about technical SEO. And they don't tend to think about something like content strategy. And so your website being crawlable and SEO optimized is only one part of it. The big thing that you want to be focusing on is that you have great content that actually the AI can train on. If you just have your landing page optimized and like 500 programmatic pages, but you don't have things like internal linking, you don't have things like proper backlinks, domain rating, all of that, you're not going to get anywhere, no matter how fast your website is.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people forget, and I see a lot of SaaS founders talking about it on X. They publish a lot of content, they get backlinks, but there is actually nothing in between. There is no internal linking, and the structure
Yeah.
is not good. Do you have any like recommendation for that, like tool that
Yes.
help to get like internal linking or make it easier?
Yeah. Tools for internal linking. I would love to know of a tool for internal linking that actually works really well. I've worked with SEO, a Surfer SEO in the past, and I quite like that for internal linking. But the best way I've seen that works really well for internal linking is a very like manual thing, but it's something that can really easily be executed by like an assistant, someone like that. And it's going in, copy pasting your entire blog into Claude. Ideally, if you again use something like Payload, it's an CMS that's really, really crawlable. Basically, you're able to say, hey, can you go, you can go and tell Claude, can you go and look through this whole CMS? Tell me the topical clusters and tell me your suggestions for internal linking, and take that into a Google Sheet. It needs to be the specific links, the target links, the source links, the target anchor, and sorry, the source anchor, and then it's the specific place that needs to go. So that sounds like a bunch of complicated terms, but it basically means where should I link from and where should I link to and on which word. And then you can go in, add a little like status thing, go in and make sure that your assistant or your support person can go and make those changes in the CMS. Topical authority. What is topical authority? Topical authority is something that seems really, really vague, but topical authority is basically how knowledgeable does Google think your website is about a specific topic. Let's say you sell tennis shoes or you're a tennis SaaS. You do everything about tennis. If you have 500 articles that all have the word tennis in it, Google is probably going to think these guys know a lot about tennis. Then when somebody searches for something related to tennis, guess what? The tennis website shows up because Google thinks you know everything about tennis. And so if you have a related piece of content about the thing that the person is searching for that is also about tennis, you're going to show up. If you're always writing about tennis and then suddenly you write like one article about green tea, it's not related to tennis. Google isn't going to think, oh, you're also an expert on green tea. If somebody searches for green tea, it's very likely that it's only going to surface websites that know a lot about green tea. So you're not going to rank for something if Google doesn't think that you have the authority to rank for that website in general. And so we see that moving forward with ChatGPT and other LLMs as well, as they basically get in the whole game, which Google has been in for like 30 years. They get in the whole game of how do we surface helpful content. And that is the name of everything in SEO as well as in AI visibility. How do you surface helpful content that is honest, that is real, that has authority, that is trustworthy? And so that's kind of something that you need to keep in mind with your whole content strategy as well. So the way that you do topical authority and that you do topical clusters is through something like internal linking. Your internal linking basically just means that you go and link to pages that are really important that may be driving a lot of your conversions as well as your signups. And you do that by linking from pages that are also related to those pages, and then they form a topical cluster. And so you don't even need to know all of the details for that, but I would highly recommend that you go and ask Claude, help me with topical clusters, internal linking, and topical authority for my website, and then putting in your entire CMS.
So not long ago, I did this thing with one of my projects. I wanted to rank really fast on AI. So I did a listicle on Medium and a listicle on LinkedIn. Both listicle ranked really fast on Google, and I got quoted in AI overview in about 72 hours. This is something that you can do in a non-competitive niche. Do you have any other quick wins like that any SaaS founder can do right now to actually go target long tail keyword or keyword that will probably convert well with AI?
Yes, 1,000%. And I love that you say that because I think with AI visibility, there's so many quick wins to be had. And they can pay off really, really fast, like much faster than SEO a lot of the time. And so with SEO, it may take months and it might be more stable. With AI visibility, it could take, like you say, 72 hours or even faster. We've seen it where we posted a listicle on client website and it showed up within like 12 hours as like a top rated ChatGPT source, which is crazy. But it happens all the time. A huge thing, and this will shift over time as well. You know, like a year ago, it was Reddit. Go and target Reddit, go and post on Reddit. Now, the best thing you can do is take that keyword list that you took from your landing page, copy paste, and create a YouTube video. This can be an AI generated video, even, can be any kind of video, and then create a thumbnail. You can do this with like Gemini, banana, nano, banana, whatever. Create a thumbnail that has your logo in big, and then your main keyword that you're ranking for, and then your company name. And so what's happening now is that Google as well as ChatGPT are surfacing a lot more video and they're sourcing it from YouTube. And so you may go and search for something, and then what you're going to see is, oh, best tennis SaaS, blah, blah, blah. Here, 1, 2, and 3. This is text. But then in big is this whole square window, this thumbnail of a YouTube video that just shows up really, really, really visible. And that could be you. That could just be your company if nobody has made content about that yet. And most people have not made that much YouTube content. So it works really, really well right now to go and create YouTube content on a channel that maybe also is like newly created, and making sure that you have a thumbnail that includes your company name as well as the company logo. And it's going to be really, really helpful. Likely what's going to happen is people are going to go in, click on that. They're going to see, they're going to go in your description, and they're going to go and see what the SaaS is or what the link is that you're linking towards. What is unlikely is that they watch the whole video. I guess that does happen, but it doesn't happen that much. And so it's really, really one of the fastest wins that you can have these days. I would totally also vouch for the Medium and the LinkedIn. And I would say the best thing for like your listicles is making sure that you add a lot of images. And people forget that really, really easily. But people love to not read anything and basically just skim through and see things like product photos, specifically like what does your UX look like? Do you have a dashboard? Do a product walkthrough? Even make GIFs. Embed a short video. You can go and embed that like the same video, and that's going to be really, really super easy for you to start ranking. You can do that on LinkedIn, on Medium, but you can also do that typically on your own blog. You can go and check your domain rating. Just search for DR Ahrefs, put in your website URL. If you have a DR of higher than 20, and usually if you've been around for like a year and a half or so, you can start posting, and specifically posting for SEO and for that kind of visibility. For AI visibility, your DR doesn't matter. You can go and post whatever, and still you might get picked up by ChatGPT, by Claude, etc. We've actually had it happen a couple of times that we search for something on like ChatGPT and sources, and then we see a blog rank that has absolutely no content almost, that has like a DR of like 5 or 3 or something super low. And they're basically like just started with blogging, but they got picked up super, super fast. These are also really great to email and then say, hey, we can do a backlink exchange with you, because they will almost always respond as like a beginning blogger. And it's a really, really helpful thing for both of you to be doing.
So we talk about posting content on your own website, on YouTube with a video, whatever video. I talked about Medium, we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about Reddit. What are the main sources for AI now? It's mainly Google, Reddit, and YouTube, or is there like any other thing? Does it go on social media? Does it go on any other places?
Yeah. So that's changing literally every 6 months. right now, which is like good and bad. It's really good for people who can stay on top of it. It's a bit more challenging for people who are not. Um, like you've mentioned, yes, YouTube is one of the bigger ones right now. Another one that is bigger and bigger is Wikipedia. So Wikipedia is really great for being listed because it's seen as the go-to trustworthy website. And so if you are able to get your SaaS on Wikipedia, and that's not always an easy process, and it's probably more for SaaS that are further on, but if you're able to get your SaaS on Wikipedia, it's highly, highly recommended. Other things that work really, really well and that are a bit less talked about because they're SaaS specific, they're not always about other things, is G2 and Capterra. Go and create a G2 and a Capterra account. I believe one of them is paid and the other is free. I'm not quite sure, but you'll be able to gather reviews, customer reviews in there, and you'll basically get a lot more picked up, and your reviews are going to start getting picked up as well by ChatGPT. And so your review websites, G2, Capterra, we already talked about YouTube, Wikipedia. I would even say that like Reddit still, for depending on the niche, the more niche you are, the better. Reddit is really great for long tail keywords. What is a long tail keyword? A long tail keyword is basically just a long question. Instead of best tennis SaaS, you say best tennis SaaS for people who have an injury like tennis elbow. Perfect. That's going to be definitely something that's going to show up on Reddit. And then I would really highly recommend, yes, Reddit is really going to work as well. For things that are more business oriented, yeah, LinkedIn is really, really good. And it's still like very highly recommended, specifically for like B2B. The big thing here also is you want to create an article, not a post. I think people often conflate the two. So an article is basically you need to go to linkedin.com and say create article, not create post. And then you can change your LinkedIn meta title, your LinkedIn meta description, and you can write much, much longer and have multiple photos in. So it's really just an article, and that's going to rank really, really well too. I know people who have like multiple LinkedIn accounts, one that is specifically like a company account, but that they use for like SEO, and then their own things that they don't use for SEO. So go and do with that information what you will. But there's a lot of people who do a lot of LinkedIn SEO, and that tends to work out really well for them. Yeah, I'd say those are like the main ones to start with. But I think it's very likely that we're going to start seeing other things take off too over time, because right now Instagram isn't ranking as well, but Google recently started ranking Instagram a lot higher. I think it's likely that ChatGPT will start looking at that as well over time, as they always continue to try and answer the question of how do we build more trust? How do we have trustworthy content ranking? How do we surface helpful answers and create helpful content for users? So yeah, potentially in the future, Instagram, I definitely see Quora as one of the top ones. And I think most forums that you can think of that are kind of popular may go and like cycle there through time as well.
There is a video that went really viral the last few days. I don't know if you saw it, but I wanted to ask you the question. It's a guy who basically says if you have a company, so let's say a SaaS, you buy the domain name
Yes, I saw that.
saasnamereview.com, and he
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that
yeah.
on his website you list
Yeah,
all the review that you got, but all the
yeah,
positive one that you got from your
yeah,
company. And he says that LLM will actually search on Google and find this because it will be an exact match domain, SaaS
yeah,
name review, and then you will get this review, and then of course he will talk about you in a good way.
yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that there are pros and cons. I think that this could work quite well for AI visibility. I think for SEO it doesn't work as well. But also this is a tactic that's super, super popular in a niche that is very little like talked about, but that is like probably the most, how do I say, the most like revenue generating niches in SEO. And shockingly, those are crypto and gambling. It's not shocking. It's not shocking because crypto and gambling, they often need to utilize black hat tactics for their SEO. Um, but it's because they cannot do paid advertising. Meta doesn't allow crypto or gambling to do advertising on its platform. And so they're quite stuck in those niches in terms of how to do user acquisition. So very quickly they go to SEO. Crypto and gambling companies love to do a domain name reviews.com, even like domain name reviews 1, 2, 3, whatever.com. Does it work? I think it could work really well for a little bit, but what's going to happen is Google is going to block you. So Google loves to ban websites like that because they have a cat and mouse game, basically, with a lot of these companies that do black hat tactics like that. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that it's quite a short-term approach, and you could need to be careful building that up, and it could be a huge waste of time. So it could work for like 3 months really, really well for like your SEO, but then as soon as Google will basically like learn about that, it's going to block you. Also, very importantly, even if you have that domain name, it's not going to start ranking immediately. You still need to spend money and time building up the domain rating so you get backlinks, you can get this, you can get that. And that's not just like a vibe coder website. However, that being said, I always think in like SEO, so much of it is also gray hat. I would personally never recommend it because the people that we work with, the clients that we work with, we don't want to get them banned. And we want to take like a, at least a medium term, if not like a long-term approach with like fast results, but that also lasts, so not just like something completely different. That being said, I do think it's really interesting. I would love to see somebody trying and seeing how that works out with like ChatGPT visibility, but I would only do it if I'm okay with having that whole website or that whole domain burned. So try it out on like, maybe something that you just started with, see if it works. It might not work, and I personally wouldn't recommend it at all, but I'd be very curious to see what someone else does. Someone else who isn't like scared of getting banned by Google and starting a new website and a new SaaS and transferring the whole domain.
Well, we might try that.
I think it would be great. I hope that you like publish results and stuff like that. Because ChatGPT is not as mature as an engine like Google. And so there are certain things that I'm sure you can do that would work really well. Even, and people do this a lot, whether it's ethical or not. And they publish things like negative reviews about competitors. Again, not recommended because you can get in serious legal trouble. But if you are your first week of building a SaaS and you literally want like your first 2-month results, maybe do the reviews thing with your own website. It's just then don't count on necessarily that domain lasting for like the next 6 months.
You're the founder of rankingonai.com. Can you explain me what do you do with this agency and actually maybe share a few case studies or what we can expect, like result we can expect by ranking on AI?
Yeah. So rankingonai.com, we do SEO and AI visibility for SaaS, only for SaaS. We work with companies like Suno, the AI music generator, cal.com, AI scheduling, a couple of YC-backed companies as well. Typically, a lot of our companies have fundraised between like 10 and 100 million, but we also work with bootstrapped startups. That's because I was a bootstrap startup before, and SEO kind of changed my life. So I typically really love to work with bootstrapped startups because I understand the need to have a proper marketing user acquisition pipeline set up where you have no bandwidth for it, right? So we work completely end to end. We do strategy, roadmap, execution, importantly, entirely for you. So we kind of operate as like an in-house growth team. A couple of case studies. I'm going to tell you some of my favorite case studies. One of my favorite ones is their company name is Quizly. They're an AI quiz generator, and they were only doing cold outreach before, but not with like a little success. But it was very, very challenging for them to basically scale their inbound leads, something that's very, very common for bootstrap startups, because again, you have no paid advertising and you don't have a big team. So we started working with them in January, early January, and then after 2 months, we were able to triple their user acquisition. And so their daily average signups went from 30 to I believe 98 every single day. And that was game changing for that entire company because they were able to convert much, much better. And that was only done through SEO pipelines. So we could specifically see this is where all of the signups are coming from. And that's just something that's incredibly, incredibly helpful and sustainable also for them because they don't need to be spending any time, any bandwidth, anything really reviewing, approving, doing admin things, publishing, looking at keyword strategies, content monitoring. You basically do all of that for them end to end. And that has continued to basically like hockey stick grow, which is extremely satisfying. We also work with companies that are actually another bootstrap company that we work with is called EditGPT. And now the majority of all of their traffic, I believe about 70% is just coming in through the blog. And it's the main source of, it's one of the main sources of like user acquisition for them for their paid channels. And so the reason is this. If someone is searching for best AI proofreader, and you can search for that right now, you're going to see Grammarly. And then right next to it, you're going to see EditGPT, which is crazy because Grammarly, they basically raised like, I think $1 billion US or something. They like bought, they bought like Superhuman. They rebranded themselves as Superhuman, I think, but they still have the Grammarly AI proofreader product. And EditGPT shows up right next to it, despite being a tiny, tiny team and despite having never fundraised. And the only way that that is possible is because of strong SEO. So it doesn't actually matter how many competitors you have or how big they are or whatever. If you have really great SEO pipelines and AI visibility pipelines set up, you can go and compete with every single one of them. And you can come out on top, which is something that I think is super, super cool.
Is there anything, any topic we didn't cover today and maybe SaaS founder actually need to rank on AI? Or did we cover anything?
I don't think we missed anything. I would just say that SEO SEO and AI visibility runs really deep. There's many layers of, oh, I understand SEO and AI visibility now. There's your first layer of getting your first 100 clicks in a month. That's just organic. And you're like, oh my God, I get it. And then there's a second layer. And that the first layer is like you just publish, right? The second layer is like, it's not growing anymore. I don't know what's happening. And that's maybe when you start to buy something like Ahrefs. And you start to look at like, how are my keyword rankings going? What are my top keywords? Doing keyword analysis. And you think, oh, I get it now. Now I really understand. And then there's a third layer, and it goes infinitely deep. It's just there's so much to know when it comes to SEO and AI visibility. But I would always say like go 80-20. Start slow, start publishing. You're going to learn so much. And yeah, keep in touch with people who post on LinkedIn about SEO and AI visibility. I do that. We also have our own newsletter where we do like actionable insights, but also look at my favorite places to learn SEO. Sometimes that's like YouTube and watching some videos. Sometimes that's the Ahrefs blog. And there's so much to learn, but the only way that you really start is by starting to publish.
Well, amazing, Tanya. Thank you very much for your time. And I think they have enough to rank #1 on Google, even above the logo now. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Florian.